So, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sean with Hydro Unlimited, and joining me today is Chad Dobson, majority owner at Syncronic Farms, and also one of the first people to implement Hydroflax. So, first of all, how's everything going with you? How's operations? How's you and your team staying safe?
Yeah, things are going well. We actually had one employee come down with something a couple weeks ago,
Ooh,
and he was kind of one of our main guys, and he had a fever, and he was showing potential virus symptoms. He recovered, and he was able to get a test, and he does not have the virus, so he's coming back to work on Monday.
wow, that's good.
But as far as all of our immediate family and everybody goes, we're all well.
That's good. Did you have to sanitize your place? I mean, was he in there when he was obviously feeling it, right, when he was there?
We wear gloves quite often here. And we have alcohol that we clean things with that we use constantly. So and all of us feel well, so we're taking as many precautions as we can, but we have to be here. The plants would literally die without us. So
Yeah, sure. And how about Washington? Are they making you guys, are they recommending, all the same stuff? You got to go out with a mask and gloves and whatnot?
I think it's recommended, but it's not required.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a mask in my car. I really don't go very many places though. I literally travel from home to the shop typically.
Hmm. That's good.
And
Yeah.
we've been camping out in the backyard quite a bit on the weekends, which
Oh,
is
nice.
it's nice to get out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as I was telling you, we're in a pretty tiny apartment, but whenever we can get out and go take a walk down the trail, it does wonders.
Yeah, it definitely helps with your psyche.
Hmm.
Breathe in the fresh air and get out.
Hmm. Yep, for sure. Well, cool. That's good. Just gonna ask you. We just hit 1 year on the Hydroflex for your flower room. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This month here.
Yeah, that's the longest trial we've had. So how's everything running for you?
It's doing really well. We've learned a bit with it. We've realized that we need to clean it in a different way. We let it run pretty much with only doing a wipe down
Hmm.
for about a year, and it was the last harvest we noticed that some of the air had not been passing through, but that was on our end. We just with everything you have to keep it clean. You got to change the oil in the car and such. And
Hmm.
now that we've remedied that, we've got a pot in there right now. The room is dark right now, so it can't go in, but it's looking really nice.
Oh, that's good. Okay. What are you switching up strains pretty often?
We are, yeah. We've done quite a few in there right now. We've got one, two, three, four, five different strains in there right now.
Oh, wow.
So that should give us a good idea. And we've ran these strains several times before, so it should tell us a bit more about how that system's doing compared to just the standard Airstone lines.
Sure. So that was one thing I was going to ask you. I was taking a look at your first testimonial video. I think we did that. You had used the system for only, I want to say it was one or two harvests. And you had mentioned that you were getting quicker growth. Have you noticed, I mean, over the course of the year, have you shaved off enough days to get another cycle, or just a little by little?
Not quite, but we don't always have enough plants to get into the flower pods as fast as we'd like. We're on a limited space here, and so we designed the shop to have the most square footage dedicated towards flower that we could.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be nice to have a bigger veg space because we could constantly supply our flower space, but we chose to not do it that way so that we could get as much flower space as we possibly could.
Sure.
And which means that our veg space is pretty cramped right now. And
Mm.
it's still dialing in the timing. We're a few years into this, and there's a lot of factors that are constantly happening. And we started out on a shoestring budget, so
Mm.
there's not a lot of employees here. It's basically me and my co-owner Jason is handling most everything here.
Mm.
But on the last harvest we shaved 4 days off.
That's awesome.
So it ended up being like 59 days, and we had amber trichomes, so it was time to pull.
Oh, cool. Okay. I was just going to ask you too about demand. Have you seen any kind of uptick, or is it kind of stayed the same?
As far as the nutrient demand?
Patient demand?
Oh, yeah, the recreational market. Yeah, we're out of weed pretty constantly now. This virus has kept people home, and it feels like people are partaking in cannabis a lot more. Yeah, we didn't do any 420 specials this year. Everything just moved as well as it normally would have moved, and yeah, we're trying to up our production as much as we possibly can. We did just get our fence permit, and we ordered our fence last week, so we are going to be expanding to outdoor cultivation
Okay.
this year.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that in Vegas. Did you are you just gonna go with like soil pots on the ground, or are you gonna try to get them in the ground?
I think this year it's probably going to be soil and net pots or fabric pots, the felt pots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of experience growing outdoors, so it's going to be a new thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to do hydroponics outside just because of the ease of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to do more research, and I have to talk to others to see what kind of pitfalls I'm going to run into before I go down that. I've looked. I just killed in a Dutch bucket experiment, or Beto bucket, other people call them, which is pretty common in Holland for like tomato production and such.
Okay.
They're real easy to use. It's a top drip type system, but the issue that I started running into was how to contain the plants, because they don't have a good firm base for the root system to stay in, so they wanted to fall over. So that's something that I'm going to have to figure out.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think this year is just going to be soil, and we should get at least 1 or 2 greenhouses up this year too.
Okay, that's fantastic. I know I had mentioned I found one account on Instagram. It was he was doing a greenhouse with deep water culture outside, and it looked like it was all insulated. But did you guys consider that at all, or you just want to?
Yeah, I think you may have sent me that. Yeah, I recall looking at that. I've looked at it. It depends on the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Craigslist's been our friend for a long time, and it's we don't have the funding, and I've seen many farms fail with very deep pockets,
Mm-hmm.
and I was told years ago when I was getting into this is to be as efficient as you possibly can,
Mm-hmm.
and that means to me buying used equipment, not all the time, but sometimes when it makes sense,
Well, I think
and doing your own R&D too.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, I think especially in Washington, I know that the price is one of the lowest in the nations. Have you seen a change at all in that, or has it kind of been steady?
As far as the price goes,
Yeah.
yeah, we're getting our wholesale price is roughly 2/3 of our retail price,
Okay.
and that means no packaging, no labor beyond just getting it trimmed and weighed out into a 5-pound lot. And sending it out at a wholesale rate, which you do have to have it tested, but it's like $85 to have 5 pounds tested. So it's the price has gone up quite a bit. Not as much as they had estimated it initially at $6 a gram, but we've been playing between the $2 and $3.66 a gram market for over a year now.
Okay.
Which all makes sense. Those numbers all make sense to us. So
Sure. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. You talked, now that you're maybe thinking about doing soil outdoor, just that aspect of trying something new. How did you feel when you switched over to deep water culture? I mean, what was it kind of scary to you? What was some skepticism, I guess, you had about it?
well, I was turned on to it, specifically deep water culture, about 8 years ago, I think now. I had a friend who I met I was selling him some equipment on Craigslist, and we became friends. And he showed me what he was doing on his medical grow, and tell me about the yields and the fact that he would only show up to his grow every 3 or 4 days. And I mean, I loved the sound of that.
Right.
And I started doing hydroponics in the late 90s, and it was a much smaller scale. But I always found it fun. But I'd get home at night and I'd just go in my crawl space there and play around and tweak things a little and see how the plants responded.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it was about 8 years ago that I really got into it. And about 6 years ago, I started to up my scale to see if deep water culture made sense in a commercial environment. So basically, I took 1/10 of what we do here now, and I did it on a smaller scale, and made some serious mistakes, but I learned from them, and I haven't repeated those mistakes. But overall, I like it. I can still leave the shop for 2 or 3 days at a time. And the main reason I'd have to come back here is because our moms are in soil, and I'd have to come back to water in the moms or fresh clones that we're selling to medical patients. And I like to come in here anyway, so but I like my weekends as well. So now I have my weekends and be able to stay away from the shop. Nobody has to be here.
That's something I hear a lot with deep water culture growers is they can do that. I had one guy, he was a little bit funny, but he used to be able to leave it for 5, 6, I think it was the most he said was 7 days at a time, and everything was fine there. He had a lot of automated stuff. But yeah, he said he loved that about it. He could leave for 7 days at a time, and he didn't do it often, but he's like, if I need to travel or take care of some other business, he could. But yeah, some other things I was gonna ask.
Yeah, we only have 55-gallon top-off reservoirs for the system. So if I made bigger ones, then yeah, we could leave for a week at a time. It wouldn't be an issue.
Even MJ BizCon, that was what, 4 or 5 days, right?
Yeah. I had people here though.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, I had Eric here. He was manning the shop here.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Is there any have there been any friends of yours or business partners that also do deep water culture and look at the Hydroflax? I mean, do you hear any skepticism about it? Are people curious about it?
I have not. I know a lot of people in this industry already know that they're growing the best way that they need to grow, so I think new players that come in might be a little bit more open-minded, but for the most part, people are kind of stubborn. Skiing's always better than snowboarding, or snowboarding's always better than skiing, type of thing. And I've kept a somewhat open mind, I think, in a lot of things, but mainly I just want to fully learn one system, and deep water culture is the system that I've been enjoying using for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I know some people who've actually tossed their their current culture systems because they couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I get that, because there's a small window that the plants grow really well, and it's just finding that window and knowing how the plants work. Whereas soil is so forgiving, but with soil you have operating costs that are higher. With labor, you've got a lot of labor to fill those things and such, and your medium's costly. And even with soil, you're going to end up using some sort of nutrients or additives that are going to go into the system. So, and then you've got this great medium for bugs to live in as well. That deep water culture does have that as well, but not near as pronounced.
Well, I always think about too all the dirt particles in the air. I mean, it's dirt. Whether it's soil or cocoa, there's always some kind of particles or something gunking up your systems. But yeah, I guess I hear what you're saying. It's forgiving, but there's give and take for both.
Sure. Yeah, and yeah, once you get that DWC dialed in, it's pretty nice. I've seen some videos of some real large scale ones. It looks like they had some deep pockets and they were able to dial it in quite well. You only know from the Instagram pictures or the YouTube videos, they won't talk about the problems, but yeah, in the end, they stick with it. So it's got to be treating them well to some regard.
That's another common thing I hear is, when we go to trade shows and talk to people, it's you know, a couple of them will say, yeah, I gave it a shot, I gave it 1 or 2 runs, I couldn't figure this out, frustrating, they switched over to something easy. Whereas the people that stick with it and continue to find out those problems end up, you know, super happy with it, and they love growing with it. And there's a couple. Another thing that I hear is there's a couple things that you have to know, but don't overthink it. You know, that's people say it's, yeah, there's a couple certain things that you need to do, but don't overthink it. It's not as complicated as you might be making it out to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's parameters you want to watch, you know, but once you've got your temperature dialed in for the reservoir and your water level can dictate some things as well, depending on the stage of the plant and your nutrient level. It's pretty simple. But if you've got a power outage, now you may have some issues without, you know, enough oxygen getting to the root zone,
Mm-hmm.
water temps raising, stagnation, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Overall, I prefer. There's always higher upfront costs with it, unless you score something on Craigslist. But it's in the end you're gonna pay for it. But the operating costs are less. That's what it really comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have the understanding of how the system works and kind of get it dialed in, it goes pretty smooth.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And our nutrient costs are less. We pay for the whole shop. I'm gonna highball it at about $800 a year
Mm-hmm.
for all of our nutrients.
That's not bad at all. And how many buckets in the warehouse altogether?
We got 162 in flour, and then I think 28 times 3, the 84 in veg.
Wow. And eight
And
hundred.
then we have a couple aeroflow systems too.
Mm.
And yeah, so
And $800 for the whole year for that. That's pretty damn good.
yeah, and we're in the 30 to 40 pound a month.
Mm-hmm.
I think is around where we're producing. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less.
Mm-hmm. You
Depends
sticking?
on the strain and stuff.
Yeah, I get you. Are you still sticking with Jax, or do you switch it up?
No, we're with Jax. Yeah, I have been putting in beneficial bacteria into the systems, and it's helped considerably. We've come to find out not too long ago here that we've been dealing with root aphids for a year and a half, I think,
Ouch.
and they're horrible little bastards. And we didn't know we had them. We thought we had fruit flies in here for my salad lunches, and it wasn't fruit flies. No, about January sometime we were harvesting, and we noticed the things crawling around in the net pot, and we knew that wasn't good. And it explained diminished yields, yellowing of the plants, stunted growth, roots that should have been beautiful, and they were kind of mushy.
Mm.
So the more research I did on these root aphids, the more I realized that this is our problem right here. So we've been working on that. We're not out of the clear by any means, but we've been using beneficials. There's beneficial fungus that you can put on them, and it infects the bugs. Harmless to people, harmless to plants, and it infects the bugs. They die within days, and then they infect other bugs too.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it's just a constant. So now when we transfer the plants from one stage to another, we dip them in that solution and let them soak in there for about 10 minutes, and then we move them to the next stage. We just started doing this a week or so ago. So
Pretty new then.
so far so good. We haven't noticed anything bad on the plants, but it's going to take months for us to see if we're progressing as far as the bugs go.
Mm-hmm. Jeez.
So IPM, like what, you know, being 4 years into this now, IPM is a huge thing. Whether you have bugs or not, start a regimen so that when they come in, they don't take over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's maintaining a healthy root zone and the canopy. So the bugs, you got bugs that'll go in the buds, you've got bugs that'll eat the leaves, you've got bugs that'll bore into the stem of the plant, and there's bugs that'll crawl into your root zone. We've had bugs that literally ate trichomes.
Wow.
And yeah, those ones were horrible. I thought those were the end of the world, and then we finally got ahead of those.
Yeah. Wow. How are root aphids introduced? Do you have any? Is it bacteria like formed? Do you think it was from outside?
Well, we've got filtered intake ventilation, but I suspect somehow at least one got sucked in there somehow, and multiplied. It found some medium in the root zone that it was able to attach onto, and apparently these root aphids are all female, so they're gonna get pregnant and they're gonna have babies. So there's really no way around it. Wow. So yeah, I wish we didn't have them, but we got them, and it's just another speed bump on the road. So we'll figure out how to deal with them. We have a small list of things that we're allowed to use. So, and talking from others who've had this, who still have the same problem, you just stick with it, and hopefully you slowly get ahead of it. Which, when we had the russet mites, I thought that was going to be the end of the world, and I haven't seen one in here in probably 8 months. We occasionally see something that looks like the evidence, but I grab my scope and I look, and they're not there. So I suspect the evidence we might be seeing may be caused from the root, and then the adjoining bud site or branch is just corresponding to a root issue. I don't know for sure, but that's the only thing I can suspect.
Okay. Do you think it has anything to do with the medium, like the why am I drawing a blank? The hydrogen?
Oh, the hydrogen. It's very possible. We've just kind of been experimenting with stainless steel dog bowls that literally fit into the current culture lid. We've been drilling out 3-inch holes, and so we're trying to keep the plants just in a 3-inch net pot, transfer that to the dog bowl that's got the 3-inch hole in it. We're having issues getting that to stay rigid, meaning that there's no longer a ballast for the plant. So as the plant grows up, it just naturally wants to fall over, which we knew that was going to happen. We just didn't know to what degree. So now we've got a neoprene 3-inch collar with the plant growing out of it, and the root zone is exposed in the growing bucket. And then we're putting on clean hydrogen over the top of that as a ballast to physically hold the net pot down, and to give a couple inches of rigidity on the base of the stalk. Now there's no moisture in there, so it's not a medium for the bugs to live in or roots to grow or anything like that. But we just started doing that in the last week or so, just to try to mitigate issues of the plants falling over. Once they go into flower, it's not a problem. So we move the plants from the veg area into the flower area. And then all the buckets are fixed, of course. So once they're in the flower room, we have cages for every plant. So then that cages the plant, and then they won't fall over. But in the veg area, caging them prior to moving them is an incredible hassle that I don't foresee this. That's not the move for us. We'd have to come up with something else. But so we're trying to get to a mediumless system, to where we have no medium whatsoever. I just see it as a good thing all around. But getting something that's rigid enough to hold the whole scenario together, to where you can have a plant that's upright throughout veg and then physically move that into the flower room, that's where we're trying to figure out right now. And we've had a bunch of ideas, and none of them have really come to fruition just yet. But
cannabis industry seems like it's booming. It's staying steady. Most states I've heard from have been considered essential. There's some states that they say recreational is not essential, but at the same time, these people got to continue their grows. What are they supposed to do? Just avoid going to the factory? It's kind of silly. But then again, I guess the cannabis industry is no stranger to wacky laws, and so we're used to it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we always get the brunt of it. But I mean, we've made it this far.
Right.
It's been 20 years, 25 years, since I kind of got introduced to cannabis, and man, it was a little dream. And this should be legal. When I first tried it and realized that I was told total lies about it. And it just takes time. Everybody's going to turn around eventually, and some people won't, but that's fine too.
So one question I had for you was, oh my God, what was it now? Oh, so there's a couple benefits of Hydroflex, as you mentioned before. You have mentioned one time there was quicker adjustment periods. I guess my question to you is, what is your favorite benefit about Hydroflex?
That would be it. The
That's
fact that I can add 10 milliliters of pH down into the epicenter, the main bucket there, and I can come back 10 minutes later and it's circulated through the entire system and I have a stable reading. Whereas it would take 45 minutes to an hour for the other system, for just going from the epicenter to have to travel through every bucket in a linear fashion back to the epicenter. And even then, yeah, it's really an hour and 15 minutes is
wow.
when I typically would get a stable reading. And that's about 10 minutes in the 200-gallon veg system. And then in the flower system, which we have 300 gallons, it takes about 15 minutes.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
But either way, we never get any nutrient burn issues. Like I can add hot newts right into the epicenter and it's going to distribute them evenly throughout the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the best benefit.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. So that leads me into Hydramax, the full system. So we're not allowed to go into the warehouse. Obviously, if we can work from home, we have to. So Scott, I don't know if you remember him, Scott from MJ BizCon, kind of a super guy, redhead, but he's our brilliant engineer. But he took all the buckets home, started messing around with the configuration in his basement, and he did a 300 milliliter salt test the other day. He simulated nutrients in this start flowing, and then 1 full minute to distribute and equal out. So it was 1 minute turnaround.
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah, it's freaking crazy.
No, see, that's a huge thing. They say to basically slowly, like incredibly slowly, add your nutrients to an active system. Whereas I never add nutrients to an active system typically. I do everything through the top off. Mm-hmm. But I know with the Hydroflex ones that we're experimenting with, I feel comfortable I could do 900 grams of diluted and pour it right into that system, and I'm sure I would never see an issue, because it would take a negligible amount of time for it to get diluted through the whole system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're pretty excited about it. It's pretty cool.
That's a huge thing. Yeah, and we got 27 13-gallon pots. Mm-hmm. They make 32, and then there's also the ones, maybe the 36 site ones, but there's also the huge buckets, or they look like a tote.
Yeah, the
system. Whereas those systems, they're running on the same premise where you have to wait for all that nutrient and water solution, everything that's in your reservoir, to flow downstream. Mm-hmm. And then circulate it. So, and it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. So the premise of recirculating deep water culture with the Hydroflex recirculation and aeration system that's like the perfect combo right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to release it. We'll get it even later, but obviously with this stuff going on, it's a couple other things that are taking priority, but that's all good. We'll get it out and hopefully get people's input on it and see it do some wonders for some people.
Yeah, I mean, people are still growing weed, and things are still happening. It's just nobody's getting out much right now. So.
Yeah. All right, Chad. Well, I will let you go, but appreciate you doing this for me and giving your input on Hydroflex, and can't thank you enough. But yeah, we'll follow up, and I'll send you that Instagram account as well.
Sounds good. Well, yeah. Thanks, John. It's good to see you, and glad to hear everybody's safe and well.
Yep. Same with you, man. You and your team.
All right. Thanks.
Hello.
I will do. Take care.
All right, brother. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Yep. Bye.